The Stonecarvers Guild podcast is a part of the Stonecarvers Guild organization, which is a fantastic organization. Don't y'all agree?
Oh, yeah, it's great. And it's cheap, too.
It's well worth the price of admission.
It is, for sure. You can find out how to become a general member at stonecarversguild.org. There's a Get Involved section. And I've been a member of the Stonecarvers Guild since its inception. It's been an unbelievable resource as far as the knowledge. How did you describe it, Joel?
Oh, it's a living library of knowledge that the stone carving world otherwise is sort of hard to break into if you are looking around for it. I'm a general member. I'm not a full-time stone carver, but I love it from kind of a hobbyist, part-time perspective, but looking to learn more, and found that through the Stonecarvers Guild, through its forum, and through being able to connect easily with other like-minded folks like Bethany and Matthew.
Yeah. So if you want to be a general member, it's just $40, and you would have access to the resources, which include the forum, and then you can log on and you could ask Matthew questions on the forum.
Or anyone else.
Or anyone else.
And also there's the annual meeting, which I just love because once a year, getting together and sharing stories is an unbelievable experience. And that's something that's also available to general members.
Attend a general meeting or even become a professional member, which has other benefits as well. You just have to go to stonecarversguild.org and click on Get Involved at the top.
Join today.
Welcome to the Stone Carvers Guild podcast. Here you will meet a variety of carvers working throughout North America. Drawing on our collective experience, we seek to share knowledge about this ancient art and to do our part to ensure that stone carving will play an important role in built environments for generations to come. So whether you are an experienced carver, new to the craft, or just curious, put on your safety goggles, open up your mind, and welcome to the workshop.
I'm Matt Johnson.
I'm Bethany Lee.
And I'm Joel Norwood. Another great episode of the Stonecarvers Guild podcast, guys.
This is a great guest. Thank you, Joel, for making this happen. I don't know how you did it, but it's exciting.
Thank you to Joel for
ordering too much from Trow Holden.
So much that they said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, amongst the many things I do, I also am a producer on the Stonecarvers Guild podcast." So,
yeah, there you go. Can I get you on?
Yeah, no, that's great. Really fascinating conversation.
I believe this is our second guest from Barrie, Vermont. I think Sean Hunter Williams.
Oh,
that's right.
Yeah.
So
I feel like
shout
we've had a lot of
Barrie. Yeah.
hard stone people from Maine and Vermont and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Trow Holden, one of the meccas of the stone carving industry in America, for sure.
Not to give anything away, but did anything stand out in your conversation, or did it leave you with any other thoughts afterward going,
Ooh.
It did make me Google how far this summer when I'm on summer vacation, how far away I'll be from Barrie. I might end up driving up there. I'm only going to be 2.5 hours away. I think it would be worth it for a day trip.
Yeah. During the recording, I was looking a lot through their catalog. They have like the digital version, and also their website's well updated. But I go, oh man, I forgot I don't have one of those. I do need one of those. Oh, maybe I do need a Bantam pneumatic chisel set for some really small stuff. I thought that would be interesting. So we'll get there.
I did think it was interesting that he said about pneumatic hammers. And okay, maybe this is common knowledge to people who use them all the time, but just the difference that there's different sizes, different size pistons, and the long stroke and the short stroke. And I guess I never really thought about that aspect of things. But
that it's a nuanced tool with which you can do a lot of different things. You've never thought about that.
But the larger point that he made about that originally they catered to the fabricators in the immediate area, and that the tools were more of that the tools really are a response to the process that they were needed for. And so, and I guess because in our trade, it's not like you can go to Home Depot and get your tools for the most part.
Right.
And so you're always ordering them from somewhere. And there's a lot of different places to order things, some of them overseas and all of them very specialized. I think that seeing it through that lens of not here's this tool that's supposed to be able to do stuff, but that the process for which it is needed precedes the tool. What I'm trying to say is that it made me think about the interplay between the tool and the process, and that's a two-sided thing.
Which, not to get too serious, but, we've been having this now years-long conversation about pneumatics versus the manual, the actual just mallets.
Mm-hmm.
And the pneumatic does inform your decisions as an artist or as an artisan or craftsperson.
Sure.
And but that does not necessarily mean that it is on a spectrum from better or worse. That that the pneumatic hammer functions in a certain capacity for and in certain times you want to move off of the pneumatic, but there's also times when you would instinctively want to move off the pneumatic, but you kind of stay on it because it is creating a texture or a style that may be a little bit different than what it would be if you were using exclusively a mallet. So just as an artist, from one artist to another, I would highly recommend that you try out your hand at some pneumatic carving, because I think you might find out that it's kind of fun. And
so I have, Matthew. Not that this is about my part. Yeah, okay. No. I have tried, and okay, and I guess to your point, in our craft or whatever you want to call it, we cannot do it without this technology, right? It's not like clay, right? You can't just pick it up with your hands and do something with it. Like, in order for us to carve a stone at all, there has to be some intermediation of a tool that somebody made and that is designed to use somehow.
Right.
And I think whatever distance you get from the piece of stone, I mean, there's the hand tools, there's the pneumatic tools, there's the robots, there's grinders, there's the guy that we just talked to a couple of episodes ago who doesn't do anything that he can pick up. And he was talking about the different saws. And I mean, there's a wide variety of tools. And as you were saying, that the tool informs your process, right? Like that it isn't just one way. It's a two-way street, right? And so what you choose to use is a choice that affects you. And so to have ways to think about it and to make those decisions consciously is really important if you want to make beautiful things. So specific things, Yeah, I think it's
Jordan's going to listen to this intro,
Joel.
And he says, "Wow, we really we covered a lot more philosophical ground than he's going to say."
Those two sound a lot smarter than they did when I talked to them. So our guest today from Trow Holden is Jordan Keyes.
Reached out, Jordan responded and says, "Hey, I'm your guy to talk to," and so this is where we go from here. Matt, Jordan, Bethany.
Jordan, thank you so much for joining us. It's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate it.
I've been carving since the early '90s, and Trow Holden has been like this mythical fixture in the industry. That's why I didn't have any sense of how big Barry was. I just know, and I don't know how to say it either because I only see it written on the side of my pneumatic hammer. How do you?
Sounds like you nailed it. Yeah, Barry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah,
I think it took us about half a podcast to get from Bar to Barry earlier in our series.
I make no judgment. I'm a transplant, and so I accept it all. There may be others who take greater offense, but I can't.
So you did not grow up in Vermont, did you? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a disturbingly similar town in eastern Pennsylvania, also a quarry town. And that just happened to be, a little bit of serendipity by the time I found my way to Barrie.
Were you involved in the stone industry? How did you end up there?
Yeah, not at all. I followed an uncharacteristic path, I guess. I went to college out in Colorado, where I met the son of the owners of Trow Holden. We went to undergrad together and started a career after college in advertising and marketing, and wanted to do something different after living in New York City for a while. Had gotten to know the company and the family over several years, and moved up when I was looking for something different, and got involved. I had played around with a lot of different trades. I'm kind of like a beaver on the personal side. I just can't help myself building this and that. So I did have some practical skills to kind of bring to it, and just kind of fell in love with the company and the customers and the product. And I've been here for about 14 years, I believe. Wow. Almost 15. Yeah.
The family that owns it, have they owned it from its founding, or?
Yeah. So in 2019, they entered the sixth generation of family ownership. So a long history there of family ownership, and it really is a family. It's interesting to hear folks say, that it has kind of this like mythical presence. And I think we generally present ourselves a little bigger than we actually are. We're right now about 14 employees, most of them production staff. And when we're really booming, I guess that sometimes goes up to about 18, but for the most part, we're a very small organization.
I love that, because like it does seem like if you go online, it seems like, Trow and Holden, it has this very kind of monolithic sort of presentation. But then when you call on the phone to order something, because I love ordering on the phone, I hate ordering online, you really get a sense that like, oh no, this is just a couple of people behind a desk, and then the shop is out back. Like it's much more family when you kind of get into it a little bit. It's kind of nice to hear that that's actually true, because I've always had that sense.
Oh, I got a quick story. I'm going to interject there. My parents were looking for a Christmas gift for me a couple of years ago. They says, "Hey, where do you shop from for your stone carving stuff?" I said, "Well, if you really want to get fancy, Trow and Holden's a great place." And they said, "We don't know anything about it, but we kind of want to surprise them." And so they called and says, "Hey, we don't know what to get him, but here's what we got going." I said, "Well, give me his name. I'll just look up what he's gotten in the past, and we can get something similar and probably tell you what's next on his shopping list without telling him." And they did, and all that information was conveyed correctly, and no HIPAA was
no violations
violated in the process, but they got the right Christmas gift, and that life is good, and you can only find that through a small company, I think.
That's awesome.
Well, that's a pleasure to hear. We appreciate it. We certainly take a lot of pride in having that. We try to toe the line, of quaint idiosyncrasy, and hopefully don't tip over into the frustrating territory of unreliable. But it really is we're a small organization, and we make a lot of products that are fairly specialized. But we take pride in the fact that the customers who are using our tools rely on them to do really pretty amazing work. And so we do the best we can to make everyone happy and make sure everybody's got what they need.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the company? When was it founded? And
sure,
all the W's.
I mean, I'm about 100 years away from having the right answers to that, but yeah, no, the company was founded in 1890 in Barrie. There was kind of a sister company that preceded that specialized in making agricultural equipment, ice harvesting equipment, that sort of thing. But around the turn of the century, that business kind of started to fold, and the granite industry was really ramping up. So there was kind of a pivot and slight change in ownership there to start making stoneworking tools. And that's where we've been ever since. So in the early days, it was very much tied to forging products for the local fabrication industry that was booming, and sending everything from monuments to architectural fabrication products all over the country. And that's where we kind of operated for many decades. Around the 70s, the customer base started to shift. So we went from predominantly servicing sculptors and fabricators to making tools for stonemasons as well. Or I guess stonemasons, figured out that they could be buying sculpting tools, and they really liked them. So they started to become an ever-growing part of our portfolio of customers. And now a lot of our business is with stone yards, masonry supply yards all over the country and the world, really.
I'm just, not to keep going back to when y'all started, but was it a part of a quarry, or was this originally like a machine shop of a specific quarry, or was this?
No. I think it was, there was already a handful of business owners, I guess, or, industry titans who understood the needs of the industry. And many of the larger fabrication shops and quarries would naturally have blacksmiths on staff who would modify tools, fix tools, maintain them, keep them in good working order. But the consumption rate was such that it warranted having an actual manufacturer who's going to be dedicated to making the new product. So originally the company was nestled into where the fabrication shops were a little bit further downtown, with a much smaller forging blacksmithing operation. And then around 1906, we moved into the building that we're currently occupying and built out a much more robust forging operation, so that we could really kind of ramp up production.
Were pneumatics, where were pneumatics at? I know that they existed in the 18, but was this brand new technology? Was it something
that's a very controversial question?
I'm sorry.
No. So right around the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s, there were a lot of outfits developing very similar products. I believe pneumatic rock drills preceded the smaller pneumatic tools used for sculpting. We certainly like to say that we were among the very first to manufacture pneumatic sculpting tools specifically for the stone trades. There were, in the early days, a few other U.S. manufacturers, I believe, but I think they started after us. The big question was, who invented it first? Was it the Italians or the Italians in Barrie?
Oh, really?
And I'll leave that to a more forensic historian than myself. I have a natural bias.
Right. I was just wondering, surely the company has a line that you're supposed to toe on that question.
Yeah. It's a little murky there, but certainly we were, there's a lot of trade magazines and everything, quite literally upstairs in the office that confidently dates us in the early days of pneumatic tool arrival. And we did a lot. So it's important to kind of know that there were a lot of tool manufacturing companies that were endemic to their pockets of stone all over the world. And so what's really interesting is that the tools just kind of inherently have a bias to working the material that's in the backyard. And so there's a lot of, when we were getting into pneumatics, we're making tools, and even our hand tools, we're choosing geometries and performance and characteristics that benefit working in granite. Whereas if you're working with the Italian tools, they have a much stronger bias towards marble, and you would expect that.
Right.
Can you tell us what some of those characteristics are that make the different tools more conducive to working with harder things like granite? as opposed to what the
Well,
Italian tools would be like?
I'm not a sculptor, and I can take a stab at that. But I've also been told that, if you're talented enough and you have a butter knife and a hammer, you can do what you need to do. So take everything that I say with a certain grain of salt. I think I can say pretty confidently that, and certainly through feedback that I've heard from folks who really rely on the tools to do the work, that the tools for granite tend to be more aggressive. So the hammers, pneumatic hammers in particular, are going to have a more aggressive kind of percussive impact because they're trying to chip material as opposed to scraping the material away, is generally the way that I like to describe it. So our cutting edges tend to be a little blunter, I guess. I was going to choose a word, where something like a marble tool or a tool that would be traditionally used in limestone shaping, those stones are so much softer, and the material removal process is different. You're really like scraping the material away more gradually at a steeper angle, so that the tools, the chisels in particular, tend to be more elongated and slender because they're being held at like this shallower angle to get more of a scraping effect. They also tend to be a lot sharper than what we're often comfortable making them, just because so many of our customers know us for manufacturing tools for shaping granite.
But Matthew, so I'm just curious because Matthew said that he had didn't you say you had your pneumatic tool? Or but Matthew, you use stuff from Trow Holden, and you work a lot in limestone, and especially softer limestones, right?
My hammer is Trow
Okay.
Holden. My
Yeah.
chisels are made by a gentleman out in Indiana, Jake Roberts, and his father, Dan Roberts, and they make chisels specifically for limestone. When I look at the chisels on the Trow Holden website, I see that they're usually they seem a lot more massive, and like you said, they're blunter, but there's also so much more mass behind them, and I assume that that's probably a part of just the removal of material. The mass of and the density of granite requiring that extra weight.
But the pneumatic, when you say the hammer, you mean like the little thing that pounds that you put things in.
Bethany.
I'm sorry. I'm a stone carver.
I'm going to send you a pneumatic hammer.
I don't want to put it.
Yes.
Anyway, but you're
Yes.
saying like that
Yes.
works really
Do
well.
you mind if we use that for the next catalog as a description of the pneumatic hammers? I like that. I'm writing that down.
Only if that's in quotation marks.
Yeah.
Dash
Right,
dash
Bethany.
Bethany.
Right.
Yeah. We have heard that this is how it's used.
Anyway, but it sounds like Matthew, like the Trow Holden hammer works really well for you. And then you
The
put
Trow,
different
yeah,
tools.
no, the hammer does work well, and I think that it's mainly, to me, it's I haven't used Cutari very much. That's the Italian Italian pneumatic. I have heard from Bob, who had a Cutari and a Trow Holden, that the Cutari it's smoother. I think it's kind of it glides more, which sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's a pain because it will tend to go into a kind of a glide stroke as opposed to the consistent periodic bam 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 that the Trow Holden has. The big difference for me is the size of they're described as 3/4 inch. And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference between like a 1 inch, a 3/4 inch, and a 1/2 inch, and all the other dimensions are the length of the stroke of the piston. Is that correct? I was directed at Jordan.
I'd be happy to have somebody else answer that question. No.
I think that's where it is, and if I'm wrong, somebody that's listening should write in and let us know when I'm wrong. But yeah,
I believe it was a piston diameter. I did once.
It's piston diameter.
Yeah, I believe so. I'll need to check my math on that one for sure. So we have we differentiate between two lines of our products as either short stroke or long stroke. The long strokes are, from our perspectives, the ones that are more original to our granite working tools. They tend to be a little more aggressive in kind of creating that chipping effect. So we generally recommend those for like more aggressive material removal or working in harder stone. And then the B tools were an iteration to which we refer to as short stroke tools. They definitely oscillate more quickly and give a smoother kind of scraping effect. And those were originally designed to compete more directly with the Italian sculpting hammers, or to provide folks with an option from Trow Holden that may behave a little bit differently.
That makes a lot more sense that it would be the diameter of the piston, because that it's about the mass of the. I mean, that would have a direct relationship with the mass, because when you use a 1-inch hammer, you can just move so much more material than with a 3/4.
Yes.
You just don't have the weight behind it. That makes sense. And I've also I use a long stroke, and the short stroke, it's really like whichever one you start with, like that's kind of the one that you're gonna gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Because they are different. They're very different.
They are, and I think you had mentioned the limestone chisels. Certainly from my perspective, I spend a lot of time with our customers, and I have a real deep appreciation for the craft, sculpting, hardscaping. That's the real privilege of working with this company and our customers. I get to interface with a lot of remarkably talented people. But from a tool manufacturer's perspective, we're tool junkies just like the rest of us, or the rest of our customers, and we have an appreciation that like people want their tools modified or get used to using one chisel over another, and we genuinely want to facilitate folks doing their best work. And if that means using one of our air hammers with somebody else's chisels, or somebody else's chisels with one of our air hammers, or vice versa, we're open to that conversation. we just appreciate well-made tools.
Can I ask you another technical question, Jordan, about your line? I think all three of us have ordered things from Trow Holden, and so the things that I've ordered from Trow Holden are the things that are carbide tools, and I'm more of a traditional. Well, sorry, I'm not defining that, but I like my hand tools. Matthew and I have verbal sparring about pneumatic tools versus hand tools and stuff. But I really resisted using tools for harder stones because I wanted to be able to work the way that my teacher worked, which was that he had his own forge, and he would harden his tool to the project, and he would modify things. So I really didn't want to use carbide tools. But the thing is that once you get beyond a certain hardness of stone, it's really hard. And so I was wondering if you could tell us, because you said Trow Holden was specifically originally catered to the granite industry. Can you tell us about the process of making a carbide? Can you talk to us about the difference between carbide and steel, and when you use those two different kinds? And from the perspective of when I went to your website, I didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a ton of things, and I have no idea what they are. And so, and also I teach, and so I recommend different places for people to purchase things. And actually the people that I've sent to your website actually have similar experiences because they just don't know. Tell us about the tools that you use for harder stones, and maybe what carbide is, the difference between carbide and steel, and when you would want to use that versus when you would want to use steel tools.
Well, first of all, we have all of those tools. No. There's a lot to unpack there, and I will we'll head in a couple of directions. But first of all, we make a wide range of tools, and and it can be overwhelming. And frankly, the best way to go about figuring it out is just buy one of everything and experiment. No.
Oh, that we could.
Oh, I know. So I guess I'll start with some history first. So the industry standard for doing any kind of stoneworking up until about World War II or the end of World War II were just steel tools that would have been hardened, to the best of anybody's ability to harden them to get better wear performance and cutting performance out of them. But any kind of stone is going to be very abrasive. So you're always going to be battling the abrasion and percussion of the tools, just wanting to naturally round over. And unfortunately, with steel, the only way that you're going to be able to sharpen it again is if you grind it with some other piece of abrasive something. And if you generate too much heat, you're going to soften the steel. So it's a real delicate balance, and there's a real art, obviously, to the forging of steel tools, particularly really thin steel tools, because you may be able to get that hard, but once you start using it and then need to grind it, it's hard to keep it cool enough to not disturb the temper of the tools through the grinding process. So that's helpful context. And generally speaking, the advantage of steel is that you can get it to a much finer, sharper edge, which can be advantageous for sculpting or carving in the softer stones, like the softer types of limestone, alabaster, marble, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, we ran into World War II and had to get creative around steel usage and get it to last longer. And there's a lot of kind of interesting things happening in the alloys world at that time. And that's when carbide came around. We can't take credit for inventing it by any stretch of the imagination, but that's when you started to see carbide working edges being welded into steel implements. And so the carbide that we use in the ends of our tools is very similar to a mining grade carbide tip that is specially concocted to have benefits for wear resistance and percussion. We want it hard enough so that it's going to hold its edge, but just soft enough that it's not going to shatter when it gets struck between a hammer and a stone. And that's one of the downsides with carbide is that it's more like a compound that's just tungsten and cobalt that's baked at a really high temperature under high pressure to make this really hard material. But unfortunately, that hardness then makes it inherently more brittle than steel. So it does have its weaknesses. And if you make it too thin, too long, too sharp, it can chip. And once it chips, it can crack, and that cycle just goes on. But on the maintenance side, it also doesn't mind getting hot. So it's much easier to touch off with the right grinding equipment and bring back to a sharp edge without disturbing its hardness. It stays uniformly hard all the way down to the last little bit. That's the thing. I often like to describe it like graphite in a pencil. As long as it's there, just kind of keep shaping it back to the original profile that you need to do the work.
Is carbide, are there different grades of carbide? And I heard a rumor, I guess about a year ago, that like the old carbide was like being sought after because new carbide was not being made with the same standards. Is that something that you're aware of, or is that just carvers talking to each other about, wow, it's not as it used to be?
I would accept that more if they were talking about steel, for sure. Steel, like, old growth wood, is one of those things where it's just, there really isn't the same quality in the steel. We spend a lot of time being methodical about what types of steel we're using in our tools, and very careful, just because it's one of the most abusive uses of a steel hand tool in any trade. So we do need to be quite careful about that. Carbide's interesting there are a lot of different grades, and now carbide's going on all kinds of different things. You can buy a miter saw blade for carpentry that now has carbide tips welded onto it. And like a couple of years ago saw my first box cutting blade for a razor knife that had a tiny little carbide blade on it. And it was mind boggling to me. I had no idea how they could figure out how to weld that on there and how it could possibly hold its edge. But so that's very interesting. The thing that's kind of tricky in this particular application is that there's always this balancing act between wanting a piece of carbide that again is going to be like soft enough not to break, but not so soft that it's going to round over prematurely. And occasionally we do, speaking for us, I guess we do shop around our carbide. There's only a handful of manufacturers that will make these special types of tips on request. So the profiles and geometry are fairly unique to us and a handful of other mining applications. And then we kind of work with a carbide manufacturer to dial in a particular grade for our application. Our goal is always to make sure that the carbide from one manufacturer to the next is always going to be super consistent. I mean, that's a huge liability for us. Like we want it to hold up just the same as they did in the early days. But you can, you may certainly see a shift in performance if we've had to move from one carbide supplier to the next. But we do that fairly infrequently, and it's also a very long process with a lot of testing to make sure that we're not seeing any kind of degradation in grade.
What parts of your tools do you manufacture in-house, and what parts, you mentioned that with the carbide that you have suppliers that make the tips. So can you tell us a little bit more about the operation itself and what you're actually making versus what you're sourcing elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We certainly pride ourselves on doing just about everything. So the only thing that's not done on site, the same facility that we've been in since 1906 is the steel. We can't make it here, and the carbide. That's a pretty specialized process, but it's pretty integrally tied to us too. So we work really closely with carbide manufacturers to make what we consider more tips and grades that we approve. So those aren't tips that you can just kind of go out and find generally. If you were going out to buy them. So as far as the manufacturing process goes, we bring in bar stock steel, usually in 10-foot lengths, and cut it up into billets that are proto hand tools and hammers, and then they go on to CNC mills and lathes to be shaped in a handful of steps, and then we do all of our own heat treating, welding, machining in-house. And then the final steps are still very hands-on. We do offhand grinding still to dress up the tools to make sure that they look as good as they can. And also to kind of give them their final inspection to make sure that there aren't any defects in either the steel or the weld joint for the carbide. And then they're put on the shelf and wait to be packaged.
From all of your products, I'm curious, not to reveal too many industry secrets, but what are some of your what are your most popular items? Is it the bull sets? Is it the, you guys provide for a lot of different pieces of the stone world. So masonry, hardscaping, sculpture, and carving, just looking at your website and its different applications categories. So just curious, what's do you guys have a go-to item that you're always packing, and then others are more specialized? Just curious.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of discipline specific. So it's helpful context to kind of know that a large portion of our business is kind of shifted towards masonry and hardscaping. And also those folks tend to uh, burn through a narrower list of products more quickly, because the application is a little more utilitarian. So that kind of skews the consumption a little bit. So like I would definitely say like our highest turnover products are some of our more specialized stone cutting hammers, like our stone busters, or I'd say probably about 10 or 15 years ago, we started making modified brick hammers where we're using brick hammer blanks that we get from another manufacturer and then weld our kind of proprietary stoneworking carbide onto them to turn them into stoneworking brick hammers so that they can be used in like thin stone veneer masonry applications and still hold up to the application much better than kind of the original steel brick hammers. And then, on the hand tool side, they would be kind of the workhorses of the hand tool family from our perspective, which are the like 1-inch hand points and 2-inch hand tracers, the mason's chippers for trimming and squaring up stone are high turnover products for us. But, from the sculpting side, those are all tools that are more commonly used in like the traditional roughing stage, I would say, of like trying to, hew a block of material and do mass material removal. And then, there would be a transition over to the finer, more refined sculpting tools to do the finer work as you get kind of closer to that finished elevation or shape. But what's interesting and why those tools might not be as popular, those hand tools might not be as popular in the sculpting side anymore, is because the advent of abrasives and diamond cutting blades and that sort of thing have kind of supplemented that bulking process. I don't find it particularly enjoyable to be around diamond blades and that sort of thing, but it's dusty and loud. But there's no arguing about the efficiency of them and accuracy. So we try not to be grumps about it.
I'm curious. So at some point, Bicknell down in I guess it's in South Carolina became a part of Trow Holden. Is that right?
No, not exactly. Bicknell started in Maine, southern Maine, and for decades, they were frenemies. I guess it's a small industry, so you try to stay friendly with everyone. And then I certainly can't speak for how things unfolded on their end, but eventually the business was in decline or looking to shift, and they closed. We did end up buying out some of their carbide inventory and that sort of thing because they were no longer going to be manufacturing hand tools and pneumatic chisels. I believe for a period of time they were manufacturing pneumatic hammers. So when that business closed, there was an agreement made that we would be manufacturing. We would continue to manufacture pneumatic hammers for them, and they would sell them under their name. So it was kind of like a white label arrangement, which carries on to this day. Like the Bicknell hammers are actually we're manufacturing those.
Oh, why do I think they're from South Carolina? That's so weird.
They are. They're located. So the ownership of the company relocated to Georgia.
It started in Georgia,
but it started in Maine, and the owners. My understanding is that the owners moved to Georgia and settled in down there, and continued to sell air hammers.
Gotcha.
We're no longer manufacturing like the actual stoneworking elements.
Okay. Sorry to bring up your competitor.
Again, it's really interesting.
us-
It's such a
Tell us about
small
Dalit. Do
industry.
you know anything about Dalit? You know, have you heard of that?
Oh boy,
No more questions
I
from
don't.
Matt.
Yeah, we're gonna have to cut off Matt, I think.
I'm kidding.
And Matt, you can come up to Barry and go through our archives and interpret the history of the stone making trade
I would
as
love
you
that.
see fit.
Yeah, I would love that. I think it's so interesting, I do think the confluence of the industry and the tool making is a really interesting story.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, I get
Because
in a
the
lot of
tools-
trouble when I disappear into the back office and start rummaging through the 100 years of stuff that we have in the shelves and in the files. Yeah, there's a lot of secrets to be learned.
And I think the relationship between an artist and their tools, it's not just that you want to find the tools to service your art, but you also will, I think you will find that your tools inform your art. And so there's kind of a back and forth there that's intriguing to me. And
Yeah,
just the way that like
absolutely.
a scientific development or a historic, the consequence of World War II and the need for steel and other industries required, innovation and now that has really changed the industry and just a lot of what can be done. It's intriguing.
Yeah.
So I won't bring up any more of your competitors then.
Well, it really is fine. I work with a lot of different types of artists and artisans in different disciplines of the stoneworking trades, and at the end of the day, I think you're absolutely right. You gravitate toward the things that you learned with, or you gravitate towards the things that work, and I try to be humble about like what these things are being asked to do. You're smashing a hard piece of something against a stone with a hammer, and it's the consistency and repetition and understanding that really kind of turns that into something special. And going back to Bethany's original point, we make a wide range of tools, and a lot of that comes from serving sculptors for so long. If an artist comes to us and say, I absolutely need to have this chisel an eighth of an inch wider, we're going to make it, and then we're going to put it in the catalog. And it doesn't matter if we sell 100 of those a year or 1,000 of them a year or 3 of them a year. For a time, we were adding those to the catalog, and a lot of that is just kind of carried forward. So it really just kind of comes down to what anybody's preferences are, or what their needs are for their particular work.
Maybe there'll be a tool called the Bethany
Yeah.
in the catalog next year.
I probably need to buy one of everything at Trow Holden first, but
I totally agree.
so do you actually do custom orders then, Jordan?
We try to. We certainly represent as much. There are times of the year where we're more open to that conversation than others. A lot of it just kind of has to do with being a small manufacturing shop, and when we're trying to play catch up on high turnover items going out the door, it's hard for us to squeeze more custom things in. But we do
Oh, sure.
absolutely get a lot of ideation from the two-way conversation with our customers and folks who rely on the tools. So yeah, that is often how new products and tools get added to the catalog is kind of through that kind of iterative dialogue, which is certainly something that we pride ourselves on.
Just curious, like y'all started as a service to the local quarries and mills in Barry. When did Trow Holden start like servicing like a larger area and eventually having a catalog that was distributed nationwide?
I guess I'd have to probably take a guess at that, but I think an informed guess would be through the network, and you can definitely see this in so one of the artifacts that we still have and processes that we still carry on to this day is we have ledgers of all of the pneumatic hammers that we've ever manufactured and who we've sold them to, and they are paper ledgers that during the manufacturing process, as the tools are getting serialized and finished, they'll go into the ledger with a serial number in the batches that they've been manufactured with certain notes about like what the tolerances were on the piston sizes, et cetera, and that was done so that we could. In the past, we would be able to look up somebody's hammer and look at what the tolerances were for that and make modifications if we needed to, in creating, a new piston for that hammer. Now that largely just kind of represents a log of everything we've made and who we've sold them to. And when it was only a couple of years into starting with the company, and received a call from somebody, and they said, my grandfather passed away and owned a monument shop in Illinois, and I have this hammer, I don't know what it is. And they gave me the serial number. And I was like, oh, I have some extra time, and these ledgers are right behind us. That one's a really old one. Now I'm curious to see what's that's all about. And so we opened up the ledger, and sure enough, it had his great grandfather's name on there, who had owned the monument shop before him, or before his grandfather. And it was just kind of a cool bit of history. And so that's kind of a long way around in saying that, like, I think in the early days when we were predominantly servicing the monument fabricators in Barrie, those shops and associations had a distribution network for their monuments that spread across the country. And then, our tools ended up out with the monument dealers, who at the time were still doing a fair amount of shaping and sculpting in-house. And now those dealers are actually more just kind of dealers and wholesalers, and the fabrication is not done. They're just kind of taking the orders, and many of them are not doing the stone manipulation in-house anymore. So I think that's kind of what spread us initially kind of far and wide in the monument shops and fabrication industry. And then eventually the stonemason started to catch on.
Wow. That's really interesting. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Bethany.
That's that's totally fine. That's fascinating about the ledger.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, when you call Trow Holden and order things, there are people who actually talk to you who seem to know what they're doing, and I'm just curious
real
who they
life
are.
humans.
And real life human, not only real life humans, but real life humans who at least have
With knowledge.
like they have some experience
Yeah.
carving, right? So I'm just curious, like, who are the people we talk to when we call, and how much do they know? And like, are they?
Wow, you're really putting me on the spot here. I'm gonna have to start.
Yeah, are they?
I'm gonna have to start asking some audience questions. How much trouble am I gonna get in here?
No, but I mean, are they carvers who are then become sales reps, or are they people who are making tools and they're just in the office answering the phone? Or I mean, yeah, I imagine that's not the case, but yeah, I'm just curious. Who are the people
Well,
who on the phone?
For one, there's not that many of us, So I'm going to end up having to name drop quickly here and out people's aptitudes pretty fast. But no, there's only about 5 people in the main office, and those are the folks who are going to answer the phone when you call. There's one phone number that comes in, it rings everybody's phone, and whoever's available to pick up the call will generally do that. And there's a little bit of a hierarchy there and who answers first, but we have one individual who's been there and celebrated his 50th anniversary with the company a couple of years ago.
Wow.
Which is like remarkable.
Right.
And not a sculptor by any stretch of the imagination, but just through longevity and osmosis, knows the answers because he's often dealing with many of the local sheds and folks who are buying tools directly from us locally. So there's that, and then it really just kind of comes down to, there's no prerequisite before you answer the phone. You have to go through a certain amount of sculpting training or stoneworking training, but certainly if there's an interest, we work closely with a couple of training outfits to give folks the opportunity to go and experience the tools and learn directly from artisans. When I just had kind of a background in hardscaping that was really unrelated to my introduction to the company, that just was present, and when I started playing around with the tools, manifested and grew. So I started working really closely with an outfit called the Stone Trust in southern Vermont, in kind of their early days, and so I went through their certification program. I'm actually an instructor for them. So I guess I can say I'm a certified, waller, dry stone waller.
Cool.
And so there's a fair amount of that informs understanding about the tools. I've participated in and taken sculpting workshops through the carving studio as well, and other formats when there's opportunity to do so. But other than that, when it is a huge, robust catalog, and we try to impart wisdom the best we can, the old-fashioned way, which is just talking and teaching and playing around with the tools.
Oh, I have something. You mentioned the robust catalog, and literally the catalog is probably a favorite catalog of mine. I've helped create catalogs in the past, and it's hard to marry simplicity with information and the visual part of it. Do you guys have some sort of great tradition with your catalog as far as how and where you're presenting things and different tips throughout? I think it's a great catalog. That's all. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thank you.
You get a physical catalog, Joel?
I have
I've never seen
before.
a physical catalog.
I have one too.
Gosh. Anyway, I've let Jordan answer the question, but then I want to know how you get a physical catalog.
We'll just send it to you. It's it's not as thick as a Bible, but it's but we do take a lot of pride in the catalog. It is often like from a branding and marketing perspective, it is kind of the totem of our aesthetic, I guess, and it informs a lot of the other marketing stuff that we generate at this point. Interestingly, so a couple of years ago, we started rummaging through our files and thinking about maybe archiving stuff in a more responsible way. And my background is actually in marketing and advertising, so I'm kind of a geek about this stuff anyway. But I opened a few drawers and noticed that there were old catalogs in there, and they were original catalogs from the early 1900s, late 1800s. And so back in the day, the catalog process was a more significant printing process. The covers were letterpress, the pages were lithograph, and there were real artists who were creating the artwork that had to be drawn and drafted, et cetera, et cetera. And so we'd go through that process every couple of years. And just because we have iterations of all of these catalogs, each cover was like very indicative of the aesthetic of the era. And so you have like a early 1900s catalog that is very scripty, ornate, and then by the 20s very art deco, and so on and so on. And so that's almost unheard of in today's marketing world, but it's the type of like perspective you get when you're working with a brand and company that's as old as this one. But today we have a catalog that is very recognizable, and we try to stay true to kind of the balance between simplicity and artfulness.
Well, you do a great job.
Wow.
You do a great job.
how is this going to be read on the like in the bathroom? When people are spending quality times helping people put their phones down and read about stoneworking.
That's good.
Mm.
But looking through it, I realized I do not
Yeah.
have the set of Trow Holden pint glasses. So
Oh,
I know what's going to be included on the next order. Yes.
Well, Bethany, to answer your question, just give us a call, and if you've ever purchased
Okay.
stuff from us directly, I will have your information, and we will send you one. Absolutely, they're available
Amazing.
free of
All
charge.
right,
We just
sounds good.
require people call us and give us an address.
Oh, great. Good to know.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. And is there anything you want our listeners to know? I mean, they can just go to trowholden.com. As we're a resource for people in the guild and just listeners who are interested, who want to get into stone carving or are already stone carvers. And beyond your
Yeah.
website, are there other things that you would want them to know so that they can take advantage of all that you have to offer?
Oh, I appreciate the offer to do a better job at selling tools, but I think really just we do. We're one of very few companies that do this, and so never take a hard sell approach to promoting our tools. But we do appreciate hearing from folks. If anybody has any questions about the various products, or we're just kind of curious, I mean, we welcome and encourage folks calling us up and asking the questions. We really do pride ourselves on making ourselves accessible and being able to answer those questions. So, I would just say, you can encourage folks to keep doing what they're doing. And if you have a question or a need, just give us a call.
Well, as someone that's called that phone number for 30 years, I can attest to the fact that y'all are always very helpful. And thank you for that. It's
and you're welcome. And Matthew, when you're ready to make the
wonderful
trip
research.
to Mecca, just drive on up. We're
I think I will. I want to look at that ledger for sure.
Yeah, you guys
That
need a
sounds
museum or
fascinating.
something.
I want to find my name in it. And,
it'll be in there.
yeah.
Hopefully more than once.
And
Well, I was going to say I have a Trow Holden hammer that I've had for 25 years, so it's not. I don't know. I don't know how your business model works, but like it lasts forever. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, they're the only tools that we feel comfortable saying will actually probably last a lifetime if they're taken care of. And often we've got plenty of examples of when they've lasted multiple lifetimes and are still in use. So that's always really cool to see.
The key is that pneumatic oil, just a couple of drops at the
Just
beginning
a
of the
couple
day.
drops.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. This has been fascinating.
No, thank you guys. It was really great.
Yeah.
It's my first ever podcast, so thank you.
You've been listening to the Stone Carvers Guild podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this conversation, and we hope that you will find us online at stonecarversguild.org. There you can find photos showing some of the things that we discussed today, additional information about our guest, and if you're so inclined, ways to get more involved with the Guild and our ongoing activities. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, we hope that you will subscribe and rate us on the podcaster of your choice. 5 stars, please. We'll be back in a month with a new episode, so until then, keep your hammer up and your chisel sharp.
The views and opinions expressed in the podcast do not necessarily reflect that of the Stone Carvers Guild. This content is meant for informational and entertainment purposes only. Thanks for listening.